Hello, everybody. This is Doug Marola with the GED Report once again. It is the end of the week and it is freezing. Let me tell you, it's been around 25 degrees here in the Bronx, and that is seriously cold. The last time we've talked about various different things going over the GED reports. And this GED report is sponsored by, I have a new sponsor, TFT Travel Group. TFTTravelGroup.com does small group trips. They've gone to Ecuador, they've gone to Peru, and they have another trip scheduled for this July. So if you like small groups of people, around 12 people in the whole group, traveling together, having a great time, TFTTravelGroup.com is where you want to go. I heard a quote, and I wish I could give credit to the person, because you know how I am. I don't want to steal credit. I'll give credit to others, unlike many people. And just as a side note, you should realize that's rare. There are a lot of so-called experts in your life, a lot of famous people, and all they've done is steal people's ideas, and they don't give them credit. And they're willing to get paid and, make money off of it. And maybe they have it right. Maybe being bad, maybe Machiavelli was correct and being bad was the way to do it, because I'll give credit to people who have great things to say and have made amazing observations. And I don't know, maybe I should just pass it off as myself and then say, okay, buy my product and you'll be, better off. Who knows? But there was a quote, and I wish I could remember who said it, but it was this quote, and I'm going to run it by you right now. And it is so true that I actually typed it into my phone to save and tell you guys, because it's one of these quotes that narrows the problem down so well and so appropriately and so correctly that that it's just pertinent, and it's something to share. And it's about education. And the statement is, education is all about pulling people out of their comfort zone and making them uncomfortable. And the current trend of avoiding this, the current trend of making people comfortable all the time, is destroying education, and in particularly destroying school. And think about the concept. Think about what they're talking about. Education is about pulling people out of their comfort zone and making them feel uncomfortable. You're supposed to, especially as you get older, at the college level in particular, because you're old enough to handle it, but even at the middle school and high school level, the instructor's job, the school's job, the educator's job is to make the student uncomfortable. Of course, not in a way that's inappropriate or rabid, or you ravage their psyche in some kind of soul-crushing, monstrous event. No, but intellectually uncomfortable. And they're supposed to get out of their comfort zone. They're supposed to feel uncomfortable. The rejection of this idea is a huge part of what's going wrong in the school education systems. And you can find many instances of this. The low-hanging fruit, the stuff that you can show for hours that this is indeed the case, is when you take a look at what's going on in college campuses. You have students demanding a safe space. You have students who want to feel that this is a home. And if somebody has uncomfortable views, then you have to run to an RA or the school president or the newspaper or the diversity officer, and you have to complain and get that person reprimanded, if not kicked out of school. And you can see this in many ways. You see this in the incident at Yale 2 years ago, where that young lady who lived in the expensive house was screaming at the house principal, that kind of position like that, screaming at him that he was supposed to make this a home. And just cursing and shouting in this guy's face. Christakis, I think, is the professor's name. And his sin was having his wife write an email saying maybe the school shouldn't monitor what adults wear for their Halloween costumes. And Halloween is a time for students to, proverbially let their hair down and, kind of just have some fun. No. There are people that made them uncomfortable. And, well, we can't have that. So we have to protect them. You see it in other places as well. You see it where you have students that come up with what would today be considered, well, today they're considered out of bounds, but in other years it was just standard thought, what would we today consider conservative or libertarian thought. And people shriek and scream and yell. You have somebody very mellow like Christina Hoff Sommers, a feminist, a woman, go on campus to speak, and people are shouting and screaming and calling her names and cursing at her face and pulling fire alarms. You see this with anything that makes today's young people uncomfortable, particularly at the university level. And this is even more bizarre because at the university level, in theory, you're old enough where you're going to deal with, maybe for the first time, ideas and concepts and people who make you feel uncomfortable. And what happens is, rather than the university allowing them to feel uncomfortable, they protect them. They create a free speech zone. So if you don't want to hear somebody speaking freely, you don't want to hear somebody saying, well, I think we should have a small government, practically no government, and people should be free and there should be unfettered free speech. Well, if that makes you uncomfortable, and today's college students, that's heresy. That's just not to be tolerated, those thoughts. You can stay away from the free speech zone and you can go to where you're comfortable. Now, these are people who are 18 years old and older. Safe space. Trigger warnings. If you're about to hear something that is rough or difficult or not what you agree or something you feel is false and it makes you uncomfortable, these are people who want a trigger warning because they're not going to be comfortable. They're going to feel bad that they hear that, well, the Federal Reserve is something terrible, and not only the Federal Reserve is terrible, but immigration policy in the United States needs to be analyzed, and there should be very few people, if not zero people, crossing the southern United States border, and maybe even legal immigration should be lessened for now. A statement like that on a university campus today gets you screamed at, blacklisted, called all kinds of names. Right? But the original idea at the high school and college level was those ideas were to be discussed and they were to be debated and you come and present evidence. Now, young people are taught this by high school and university professors, assistant professors, adjuncts, you name it, that if the statement or concept makes them feel uncomfortable, then the person who caused that discomfort should be deplatformed, called a name, attacked, screamed at, spit at, all kinds of things, and maybe not allowed to work or operate in polite society ever again. This rejection of being made uncomfortable is ruining lives, and it sure as hell has destroyed schools. The colleges, that's easy one. Minding the campus, campus reform, the college fix. These are all sites that adequately, more than adequately, show you how helpless these people are. What happens when somebody is in an environment where nobody is concerned about your feelings? What happens then? Let's say you're a barista at Starbucks and you're in a neighborhood where you're going to hear real talk. You're going to hear people talking the way people speak and you're uncomfortable. What happens then? They didn't provide a trigger warning. There's no safe space to go to. And they're now left wondering what happened. What has the high school and college taught that person? Nothing. Not only have they taught them wrong information with regards to anything going on in the real world, with regard to politics, economics, money, racism, the racial issues in other countries, borders, language, people's culture. They haven't taught them anything about that. And now they feel uncomfortable and no one is coming to save them. I don't know, some people don't react well to that. The discomfort and the issues could have been avoided if at the college campus or in the high school those people were able to confront ideas they don't like. So these are things where you have schools as institutions dropping the ball and falling prey to concepts that are damaging to people. One of the great things about traveling is there are no safe spaces, there are no trigger warnings, there are no microaggressions, and nobody ever says words like cultural appropriation. Think about that for a minute. At the university campus, you're supposed to get angry at cultural appropriation and be angry at the person who culturally appropriates. It's probably one of the stupidest things out there, and it's destructive. Because what happens when you see somebody wearing a sombrero on a street? Let's say you're on Broadway and 125th Street, and you see somebody coming out of a bar wearing a sombrero. Well, that looks to me like cultural appropriation. What are you going to do? You're going to smack the hat off of their head? You're going to tell them that you're going to scream at them that that's cultural appropriation and they should stop? You're in the wrong neighborhood. You're going to take a big loss. You're going to get hurt. You're going to be, in some places, it could cost you more than just some pain, right? You come to where I work in Mount Vernon, and you have let's say you see a student wearing a sombrero, or they have their hair in dreads, and they don't seem to be the culture that should be wearing that kind of hair or dress, and you confront that person, you're going to get hurt badly. And they're not going to hurt your feelings. But what do? We show people at the universities that this is appropriate behavior, that this is a thing, to use current language, that they should be worried about. I can't think of anything more time-wasting, stupid, and ridiculous than something like cultural appropriation. Instead, maybe say, well, what is it? And when we look back at mimetic exchange and creolization of languages and dress and ways of speech, maybe we should take a look at these mixings and see what they produce. And let's actually see what they're all about. That's what multiculturalism was supposed to be all about. They ruined it by this cultural appropriation nonsense and arbitrarily deciding that all cultures are wonderfully equal and wonderfully wonderful except Western Christian culture, the one that in where this exists. So it's complete, everything is backwards, everything is wrong, and the schools, in refusing to allow intellectual discomfort, have damaged maybe now a generation of young people. It's getting pretty bad. It's getting really rough. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. One of the few good things about being in a school like where I work, Mount Vernon High School in Mount Vernon, New York, is it's kind of a rough place. There's a lot of violence, rough language. But the students there, and I've had hundreds upon hundreds, maybe thousands after 17 years of wonderful students come through my room, is nobody's worrying about cultural appropriation. I go months, maybe even entire school years without hearing trigger warning, safe space, or cultural appropriation. I'll tell you right now, I never hear trigger warning, ever. And I certainly never hear safe space, because we don't have very many safe spaces, right? Multiple brawls today, all kinds of nonsense. PD called, ambulance. I mean, a total mess. Not a lot of safety going on today. Every 4 or 5 months, I'll hear someone mention cultural appropriation, and it's always a senior who's kind of got one foot out the door and is a socially aware senior as well. So what to do and what's the fix? Very simply, make sure you and your friends, if you're a high school student, that you look at the views that you're told are terrible. Look at the view. I'll say that again. Look at the views that you're told are awful. If for nothing else, to debate and destroy those views. Look at conservative libertarian sites. There are some white nationalist sites out there that even make somebody like me uncomfortable. I mean, really crazy stuff. You should check those sites out. You should look at them. Why? So you can adopt the views? No. So you can see what people are talking about, and some of those views may make you feel uncomfortable. We have people screaming about immigration. They never travel. They're never on the southern border. They've never been to Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, Honduras, Colombia. But yet they're up here in New York City screaming about immigration and how, the federal government's policy, coincidentally over the last 2 years, not the 8 years before then, how that policy is so bad. They have no thought. They're not anyone you should listen to. And you should see what the other sides, plural, are saying. Rather than run for cover and be protected like you've been, look at those other views. Look at the sites that get banned. Last but not least, what else can you do is you can surround yourself with people who are willing to look at, what's the word I'm looking for? Inappropriate ideas. People who have politically incorrect thoughts, who are thought criminals. Talk with people like that. Find those people out. You'll learn more just in a conversation with somebody like that than you will from some social justice warrior college student or social justice warrior professor who's supposed to be teaching you marine biology, but instead spends an hour screaming about Trump and Republicans and racism. You're supposed to be learning biology. Marine biology is a valuable topic and quite interesting, and yet your prof keeps screaming about Trump? That's damaging. And there's no strength in that. There's no bravery in that. Everybody at the campus is anti-Trump. Your person is not a resistance member. Your person is not helping you out anyway. I don't want to get too far off a tangent because the idea is the same. You see professors like that and teachers like that. And you just do a mental check in your head that this person is just repeating talking points they saw on CNN or MSNBC, and you need to talk with other people. You need to find somebody else. You need to search out discomfort because the schools, in coddling you, are doing you a disservice. They're putting water wings and a life vest on you. And they're saying, and they're throwing you in the pool and they're saying, oh, we taught you how to swim. They haven't. They've taught you how to drown.